Welcome to episode 190 of the Left Behind Game Club. This week, Katie and I talk about our experience at GDEX 2024. Let's get right into it.
You're listening to the Left Behind Game Club.
Welcome to the Left Behind Game Club, our never-ending attempt to make sure that no game is left behind. I'm your host, Jacob McCourt, and today I have one friend with me. You love her, you know her. Wow, that was backwards. You know her, you love her. Her name is Katie Lesperance.
Hello. We're back from Ohio, of all places.
What's round on the end and high in the middle? It's Ohio, right?
OHIO.
OHIO. Katie and I went to GDEX for the first time. Again, thanks to the team over there who sent us media passes for the event for coverage purposes. We got to play some games. We got to hang out with some friends. Katie, thoughts on the conference?
GDEX was fun, mainly because, I mean, we have grown to know some people who live in the Columbus area.
We know 3 podcasters from Columbus, which is wild.
They all live like 20 minutes from each other around Columbus. And they told us, they're like, oh, hey, by the way, there's a convention near us in Columbus. And we're like, that is a drivable distance from where we are. So we're like, we're going to go. We're going to see some games and we're going to meet up. And I had a good time. It's a lot smaller than we've done previous episodes on a PAX, multiple PAX roundup episodes. This is a much smaller, more kind of intimate setting, less people, kind of, if it's possible, indier developers.
Yeah.
You know? Very small teams. A lot of them are not with a publishing team yet. They're just kind of trying to get the game off the ground and get, people interested. So that was kind of fun to see kind of a game development at kind of like the ground level.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, apart from Midwest Games, who we are going to talk about some of their games later in the episode, very indie focused. Even the Artist Alley was rad and had some like very local artists there. So we're going to talk, I don't know, maybe 30, 40 minutes about some of the stuff we played. But before we do that, just a couple of reminders. If you could do us a couple favors, that would be great. One, if you're listening to the show and you'd like us, give us a review on your podcasting platform of choice. 5 stars is the only acceptable rating. If it's 1 star, take it back. And if you're listening this far and you're 1 star, just stop listening. Go find something else. It's all good. Send this podcast to a friend because that's how people hear about podcasts, and follow us on Twitter at Left Behind Club because that's where we are updating folks on the timing of our episodes. We've got an episode on November 6th coming out with Dan from The Greatest Story Ever Played. One of the folks that we hung out with this weekend, we are playing Finding Paradise, which is the follow-up to the Moon. And then before the end of the year, we are planning episodes on Brutal Legend with a friend of the show, Roger Reichart. And then I'm also going to drop the video game trivia audio from PAX West in the feed as well. So stay tuned for that. So we talked about our experience. Why don't we kick this off with an interview on one of the games that I played? We talked about Collapsus from Wraith Games in a previous PAX episode, I believe in episode 181 for PAX East. They were at GDEX because they are from the general area. I believe they're from Wisconsin. And so I got an interview from Jay Kidd, the creative director at Wraith Games, and he's going to tell you all about Collapsus.
Collapsus is a block crunching puzzle game unlike anything you have ever played before. Basically, what you do is you have this resource management mechanic. With every single block you click, it removes it. It destroys it forever, and all the blocks above it start to fall down. With those breaks, you lose one of your resources. When you're all out of resources, it's game over. But by creating columns or rows of 4 or more of the same block, you get some of those resources back, and it pushes you closer and closer to leveling up. But there's a bit of a twist. You can physically take your device and turn it into all 4 directions. Now, that is on mobile, so iOS, Android, and Fire Tablet. However, when we release on Xbox, Switch, PlayStation, and PC, you can use your controller with the shoulder buttons to rotate the gameplay around.
What sort of game modes can we expect in this one?
Oh, there are far, far too many game modes. We have 3 different difficulties with 2 unlockable harder difficulties. We also have our tweaks menu. In the tweaks menu, you can actually fine-tune a lot of what the game is. Like, for instance, you can turn on Zen mode. You can turn off the power-ups. You can turn on a timed component. There are about 10 of those. On top of that, we have challenge mode. Challenge mode has 100 separate challenges. Like, for instance, chroma mode. Chroma mode has split color blocks. One color on one side, one color on the other. Or chameleon mode. There's special blocks on the board that with each break, they rotate to the next color in a cycle. There are 100 of those, and then 100 plus modes that build on top of those mechanics. On top of that, there's puzzle mode with 300 built-in single-screen puzzles, a free daily puzzle brought to your device every single day, an online puzzle maker so you can make your own puzzles, share them online, puzzle tour where you can go through a guided tour of different puzzles that are available online, as well as mission mode, 100 objective-based challenges, and then 100 secret missions once those are beaten. We also have daily mode, not to be confused with daily puzzle, where it'll give you the same board every single day, and you can compete with how fast you can do that versus your friends. Kind of in like a Wii Fit kind of a thing, where there's like a little chart, and you can see how much better you're doing day to day. We then also have battle mode. Battle mode is up to 8 players, local and online, where you can go head to head. The better you do, the more junk blocks it sends to your opponent to make their lives harder. And that is both local and online. So you can be on your own couch or across the globe. Inside of our battle mode, we also have versus computer, where it has a bunch of NPCs, or not NPCs, a bunch of bots with different personalities that you can fight against. And when I say personalities, that's sort of like, how aggressive are they? How defensively do they play? How often do they use power-ups? Things like that. We also have versus self, where you can actually fight yourself, basically. The better you do, the more junk blocks it sends to yourself. Multiplayer score attack, multiplayer race, where you're racing to see how fast you can do different high scores. And we also then have our tournament mode, where, much like Smash Brothers, you can set a tournament bracket right in the game, as well as the absolute best part, there are no ads, there are no in-app purchases, no loot boxes, energy mechanics, any of that nonsense that make modern puzzle games such a just trial to play through. But we have something a little bit special too. Over 100 accessibility options for...
I was going to ask you about that, because you have certain accessibility features for specific types of color blindness and whatnot, right?
That's absolutely true. We have 7 different types of color blindness modes. We have the National Federation for the Blind has high contrast standards that we follow for a high contrast mode. And then we have about 35 other really cool color palettes as well. We also have a screen narrator, so that when you click on the screen, it'll say like triangle C5, and we have completely remappable controls, including the ability for you to map controls so you can play with just buttons hooked up to a power chair if you have it, so you can control the game with just your neck if you really wanted to, so paraplegics can play as well. If you can play a video game, we want you to be able to play Collapsus. That's why we call it Puzzles for People.
My last question is, this one's available in early access on itch now, on Android and PC. Are all of the game modes that you described here in that version of the game?
No, not all of the game modes are in there yet. So a while ago, we finished up nearly all of our challenge modes and nearly all of puzzle mode. We then decided to refactor our code. So what that meant is we removed those temporarily, we refactored the code, make it even better, and now we are slowly reintroducing the challenge modes, puzzle mode, and a few other things as well. However, you can scrub through the old builds and you can play those older, kind of jankier versions of them, because we do have a complete build archive available for people who want to go back. However, it's probably best just to play the new shiny stuff and then see as we start re-releasing all the other cool stuff that we kind of deprecated out.
Last question. Do y'all have consoles, timing for this one, and where can folks follow along on the journey for Collapsus?
For console, PC, Mac, Linux, and mobile, it's releasing all on the same day in 10 different languages worldwide. That is thanks to our publisher, Ratalaika Games. They're doing all the heavy lifting on that. However, we don't know when it's fully coming out, mostly because the game has been in development for quite some time, as you can probably tell by all these modes, but we are definitely aiming for next year, but we will not make any promises on that. But you can follow along with development on our Discord server, which you can find on our website, wraithgames.com, on our Twitter, at Wraith Games, on our Facebook, at Wraith Games, Instagram, also at Wraith Games, so you can get to the Discord from there, and of course, Wraith Games on itch.io, and you can wishlist on Steam, also Wraith Games.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much.
All right, that was our interview with Jake Kidd from Wraith Games on Collapsus. Genuinely, Katie, very excited to play this game when the full version is out. I have already purchased a sort of an early access version of this game on itch.io. So if you have Android or if you have PC, it is already a game that works well. It's just that they're adding more features to it and then releasing it on console at some point. So again, you can check that out. We'll make sure to link all this stuff in the description. Why don't we start and talk about Midwest Games? They were a big sponsor, big presence at the event. And let's start with Dark Sky, which is one that you played. I played it too, but tell me about your experience with Dark Sky.
Okay, so Dark Sky is...
This is a Katie-ass video game.
It really is. It is a strategy deck builder. Not a roguelite. I will forgive it. That's okay. I can play other games. It has like a little narrative. You have characters that you are taking along with you. Each character has a different deck. You can kind of manage your deck as you go, but it is more strategic in that you place your characters on the field, and there are like 3 rows. There are different slots you can put them in, and then their attacks or abilities will affect different areas. So maybe you won't be able to use that attack because that enemy isn't in that spot anymore, but you may have to adapt. Maybe you move beforehand, but once you move, you can't attack. Or no, once you attack, you cannot move. Yep. Yeah, it was good. It was... I'm curious to keep going because I'm always want to see how far they develop the different card decks, how the abilities are going to kind of play with each other. But what I played with, I was enjoying it. I would have kept on playing with that game for, I don't know. We'll see how long it goes. But no, it's fun. It's like you said, it was right up my alley. It's kind of puzzle strategy.
It really reminded me of a cross between Slay the Spire and like a SteamWorld Quest or a SteamWorld Heist in sort of maybe style. And so if that combination of things is exciting to you, there's even like an overworld where you kind of make your way through, interact with characters, and that is like a top-down isometric view. So there's a lot of different games at play here. And this one is out. So this one came out on September 24th, so about a month ago from Midwest. So again, if this is something that calls out to you, if Tactics in a Grid plus Slay the Spire is something that gets you excited, I think Dark Sky is a game for you. Did you play anything else in the Midwest booth?
I would believe we both played Hive Jump to Survivor.
Yeah. If you like Survivors likes,
sure,
then Hive Jump 2 is probably a game that you'll love. This one was released also in September, on the 10th of September, and it is very much like a Survivors game, but it also kind of reminded me, and I don't mean this in a demeaning way, but if you think about some of the old shooters on like miniclip.com back in the day,
yes,
it gave miniclip.com shooters plus Survivors like. And I surprisingly, like, I sat down and said, I'll try this thing out. And genuinely, I think this was my favorite thing that I played at GDEX.
It was the thing that I most thought, I'll just keep on playing this for hours because I'll just keep on doing a run after run after run. It's a Survivors like, but a little bit more involved because it's almost like a twin stick.
Yes.
Not constantly, but you're kind of deciding the direction that you're shooting in, depending on what weapon you have. And then you're a little bit more agile. You have a jetpack thing that you can kind of sprint, jump away from things or over things. So, it's like a little bit more action focused.
And unlike like a Vampire Survivors where you just get certain weapons that sort of stack over time, you get shops or drops in between each of your rounds, and you can pick kind of the direction that you want to spec your character. So sometimes they are very Survivors-like, where it is, hey, you're going to pick this thing and it's going to do the shooting for you. But like you said, twin stick shooters, some of the weapons, you actually have to be the one to direct and shoot in a direction. So I almost didn't get the Survivors part until I really got like 10 minutes into it and said like, oh, round-based, some of the weapons are auto shooting, you don't have to do it. So it made a little bit more sense, but I appreciated the ability to spec in a direction using a shop, and you can even stack, which I appreciated, rarities. So let's say you get 2 of the same weapon, you have 1 in your inventory and 1 in the shop. You can then stack them, combine them, and increase the rarity on them. So then it's an even better weapon or item. A cool game, also relatively cheap. Like I looked on it, and it's, in Canadian dollars, it's $9 Canadian.
What?
So it's got to be like it's got to be $6.99 US or something like that. So for what I played, to play this for a couple hours and check out some of the different roguelike things in it, like rad.
I feel like a salesperson right now, but I'm playing that tonight. What?
Yeah, you're not waiting. You're just gonna go play it yourself. Yeah.
I liked that. It felt more. It felt like I have more choice. Whereas Vampire Survivors, I'm like, well, this is the choices available to me, and that's the scenario here. But I felt like I could be more specific about my choices and kind of direct it where I want to, rather than what's given to me. I really liked it.
Yeah, I'm there with you. And I'd not heard of the first version of this game because it appears to be a sequel.
I've heard it, but I couldn't have told you anything about it. But I'd be like, that's a game. I've heard of that. But yeah.
This one is only out on PC, but you can get it on Steam or GOG if that's your thing. So again, that was Hive Jump 2 Survivors. Those were the games that we played with Midwest. But maybe let's do a quick one on one that we also both played from Midwest called Duck Paradox. That one also out, and that is a sort of time-traveling adventure where you just have to save your duck. But what it ends up being in practice is a 2D sort of action puzzle game where you have to hit a bunch of switches and make your way through a level to get your duck, and then escape the level with your duck while defeating evil ducks that are in the level. But every time you shoot a bullet, it stays in the environment until it hits something, whether it hits an enemy or it hits you, which I thought was rad.
Yeah. No, you cannot spray and pray, because the more enemies or more bullets that you fire out there, that is just more things that you have to dodge. You create your own bullet hell if you shoot too many times and miss. So yeah, you have to, but it's also fast paced, which is great. So it's one of those things where when you die, you're like, oh, I screwed up. Like, I know how I screwed up and I can do that better. And it reloads right back up, and because it's just like little condensed little levels where you're just trying to get to one end of the screen, get the thing, get back. My favorite thing is that when you get your duck, all of the other ducks come and, like, it's a swarm, like you're running back to get to the exit. It's a very well made game.
Yeah, and then there's even power-ups, and the power-ups appear as, like, ducks that, like, small ducks that follow you. So sometimes it improves the amount of time that you can slow down time, or it affects your jump or your speed, or, there's tons of different things. And it is run-based. It is a roguelite. So I believe that 10 levels make up one run, and they increase in difficulty as you go, where the first couple are easy, then the next ones are intermediate, and the next ones are advanced. So one that I also, again, their slate, Midwest slate was pretty good at GDEX.
Yeah. Last thing on Duck Paradox is that it looks silly and funny on the surface, but the game mechanics are rock solid underneath.
Yes, agree. It's just very agree.
Fantastic game. Quick hit. Another Midwest game. That I was just going to mention quickly later. Lullaby of Life.
We are not sponsored by Midwest Games.
I promise. Swear to God. Lullaby of Life. It is a relaxed little puzzle game where you're like this little blobby amoeba looking thing swimming through an area, and you're hitting these buttons that make these chimes, and you use those to solve the puzzles. And it's just a nice, calm puzzle game that feels good to play. And if that interests you, just, maybe open up the Steam page and check that out.
Yeah, I played that one, and it definitely was not for me, because I don't do well with games that don't give you much direction. This was a game that was very like, hey, here you go ahead, make your way through, and your little creature has, I don't want to call them tiles attached,
like
but
orbs.
they essentially can make orbs, and they can make two different noises, and those noises, I guess, or those waves that they project help you go through certain gates. So let's say you have a yellow orb and a purple orb. That means that you can use those orbs to go through specific gates in the environment. It's a wild looking game. So
yeah, it's
not for everybody, but you enjoyed it. So that's Lullaby of Life, again, from Midwest Games.
Do you find yourself playing older games and wishing that there were new discussions about those games? Enter Tales from the Backlog. Hi, I'm Dave Jackson, and on each episode, I'm joined by a guest to break down those games that may be stuck in your ever-expanding backlog. Each episode looks at one game in depth, focusing on mechanics, story, music, and other aspects with no spoilers until a clearly marked spoiler wall in the middle. If you've played the game, go ahead and climb that spoiler wall and enjoy in-depth story discussions, and if not, jump out when we warn you and maybe go play that game for yourself. We have over 100 episodes in the feed, everything from Disco Elysium to Tunic to discussion episodes about how to get into horror games, and if games actually need to be fun, or if they have more to offer. I guarantee that there's something in there for everybody. Once again, that's Tales from the Backlog, available wherever your podcasts are found.
Do you feel like you're the only person in your circle who wants to go deep about video games regularly?
We were like that too, until now.
Welcome to Crossplay Conversations, the brand new bi-weekly topical video game podcast from Luke Lewis,
Joseph Hooper,
and Jacob McCoy.
With many years of breaking it down separately on shows like the Left Behind Game Club, Player Podcast, and Lukewarm Games, the gang is finally coming together to publish their gaming group chat in audio form every other week.
Expect roundtable reviews of the latest games, profiles of upcoming indies, and insightful conversations about essential topics in the video game industry. All with a mostly positive, insightful, and fun style.
Help us out by subscribing on your podcast platform of choice to get the first episodes delivered straight to your feed.
And follow us on Twitter at Crossplay Convos for updates about the show.
Cheers and happy gaming.
Katie, another game that is out there, the Pedestrian.
Yes.
Tell me about your experience with this one. You also have been playing the full game thanks to the devs who passed you a code for that.
They did. Thank you to them for offering me that. The Pedestrian is a game by Skookum Arts, Skookum. It is another puzzle game that is based around signs. You are like a little pedestrian, like the classic universal, like little walking man for a pedestrian, and you are in the sign and you have to get from your spot where you open to the exit. That's it. But you could have 5 different signs that you are then rearranging, and you kind of have to connect. Let's say there's a ladder, there's a down ladder in this one, there is a the other end of that ladder, another one, but there are other options. There's another sign with another ladder, and you can kind of get yourself stuck. And then sometimes you have like batteries you need to hook up, different things. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. It's kind of one where you sit back and you look at all the pieces that are in front of you, and you go, okay, what is the path that's going to get me from here to here? And it's also just creative. Like it's the signs are set within a 3-dimensional world that serves as a backdrop, and that world is kind of swooping around as you're going from sign to sign. It's taking you to new places. It's a beautiful, very simple game that I played for probably a good half hour, and then I got to a part where it added like
you played it for half an hour.
Oh, probably. I think so. I played quite a bit.
Not on the floor, but you played it at home for half an hour.
No, on the floor. I played a long time. No one was waiting. I wasn't blocking up the line here. It's fine.
Okay.
I got to a spot where it added like a new puzzle mechanic of like overlaying one sign on top of another sign. And I was like, oh, we're doing new things. We have new mechanics to show me. I'm done. I'm out. playing this at home. Lock that up.
And this game was on Xbox Live Game or Xbox Game Pass for a little while. I don't know if it is still on Game Pass, but this is one that you can play through in about 4 hours time. Mm-hmm. So if you're looking for a cool little fun puzzle game, what I appreciated is that your little stick guy is on a 2D plane, but the 3D environments, so imagine you have these like 2D planes that you're moving around like they're little tiles, but these tiles are in fully realized 3D worlds.
Yeah.
And that 3D world is just kind of going on in the background, which I thought was sort of wild given the scope of this game.
Yeah, it's just a way of, because the game itself, like I said, it's very simple. If you just presented like, this is the puzzle in front of you, it's a very, very simple layout, but the way that they've implemented the signs and then stacking that on top of the world, it just makes it just enjoyable to look at. Like, it's a beautiful game. Like you said, for a small game, really. I don't know how they did that. Like, you're moving from area to area very quickly.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, there's like 4 different backgrounds. It's like, no, the background is constantly changing. It's nuts.
Yeah. And look, some of them look samey where it's like, hey, here's a work shed and here's a factory. Sure. But at one point, I've seen footage of this one where you go out into a city environment or others. So this again is the Pedestrian. Scootum was showing off their new title as well that is not out, but the Pedestrian's been out for like 4 years on PC and was just released on Switch this year.
It's
one that's
4 years.
Yeah, so the way that this one went was that it started on PC in, I think, 2020, and then they put it out on additional consoles. I think PS4 came first, and then Xbox in 22, and they just put it on Switch this year.
I had no idea it was out that long. People had told me, that's been out for a bit. I thought like, year and a half, tops.
Nope,
there's also
4 years
on
PC.
There's a demo on Steam. So if you're like, a little puzzle game that's like very well designed, yeah, you should check that out.
We're again leaving all the links here, so this one will be in the description if you want to check the Pedestrian out on PC. I've played another game. I played a little game called Maiden. This one is from Tasty Games. It is coming out in April 2025. This one, if you played, and again, I always hate to compare it to other games, but if you played Pepper Grinder from this past year, it reminded me a lot of Pepper Grinder. You play as you play as Penny, and Penny has a drill, and you go around environments exploring a mine and then other environments, and explore, defeat bosses, and that's sort of the vibe here. I think these sort of games, when I think of drill games, I think of like Drill Dozer, I think of Mr. Driller, I think of Pepper Grinder. The drill has to feel good, because if the drilling and the locomotion with the drill does not feel good, you do not have a game. I am very pleased to report here that Maiden drill feels good. So if Pepper Grinder, if Drill Dozer on the GBA were sort of your vibe, or if you're just like sort of into platforming that has good locomotion, Maiden is one to check out. Coming from a smaller team, I believe it is the team's first game. It's one that the head of the studio has been working on for a while and has brought on more people to kind of push it out the door. But coming in April of 25. Did you have a chance to touch this one?
I did not. I saw you play it for a few minutes.
Yeah, you came on kind of, so the demo was 15 minutes. I think that you came up right before you were leaving, just as I was like wrapping up the demo. So one that was maybe a little bit harder than I had expected, because I was going through an area where as you were traversing through the dirt, there are mines in the dirt, and I am bad at video games, so I just ran into a bunch of the mines and died.
Yeah.
But what I played was good. So Maiden, coming from Tasty Games in April of 25.
Fantastic.
Your last game is a little thing called The Boundary Condition, which I also played.
Oh, did you? Good.
I did.
Good, because The Boundary Condition is a unique little game project that I just wanted to talk about. Its developer is Andrew Groot. The End. It is one man making this game that he's been messing around with. He said that he works in like coding engineering stuff. And he's like, yeah, planes and vectors. That I love that. So I'm like, great. Happy for you that you are.
This game is only vectors.
Putting this into that. So the boundary condition is conceptually, I just think a fascinating idea that I have not seen before. I haven't seen a game quite like this. I don't know, like it is a work in project, a work in process. What is the word? Progress.
A work in progress.
I was like, process? Blah, blah. That. So you are a spherical ball, and basically the goal is to get from one, same thing, half my games here, get from one spot to the other spot. But there are obstacles, there are things in the way. What you can do is you change which plane the game is on. So it can be in 3D, it can be in 2D on one axis, it can be on 2D on the other axis, it can be in 1D where you are just a line. And then you're picking kind of where you're changing the plane. So you're moving to a certain spot in the area and going, okay, this 2D slice going forward, I'm going to chop the game like that. And now it is a 2D platformer. And if you kind of picked the right spot where it gives you a place that you can navigate, the jumps that you can make, etc., you can get across. And you kind of have to experiment. It sounds like something that people would be like, dear God, no, that sounds complicated and weird. And vectors, no, thank you.
Yep.
But you can kind of play with it and kind of figure out what you're doing. I don't know, like the level design isn't quite there. Like it's hit or miss. Like it has ups and downs. It's not
the core mechanic was so wild and solid.
Yes.
And it just felt like we were sort of still seeing the game. Core mechanic solid, levels were still kind of being built out, and it was really just like proof of concept was kind of what we played.
Yes. The proof of concept is fascinating. Like I said, I haven't played, I have never seen anything like this where you can play with the game and in that way and make whatever slice you want. And then it's kind of fun just to see if I do this, cut it on this plane in this spot, what is it going to look like? I thought my brain worked like this perfectly. It doesn't. I was like, oh, this is less how my brain operates than I thought it would have been. But it was still fun to just like mess around with and figure it out and experiment with. So yeah, as like an idea and a concept, I'm fascinated and I will be following where this game goes. I wonder if like, I don't know, if another team member or like if a publisher can get involved and kind of help give some direction maybe and how to like further develop as far as making it a game. But yeah, no, I'm going to keep this on my like Steam wish list and just kind of check in and see how progress is going because I think it's super interesting.
Yeah, seeing this one being described as like a 3D, 2D, 1D platformer is something that I have never seen before. And the first time I don't say I popped, but when you take the 3D plane and move to a 2D plane in a like overhead way, I was like, oh, wild. And then when in the next level, that 2D plane, instead of being overhead, was like from the side, I was like, oh, this core mechanic is wild.
Yeah, you can do it like on the X-axis, on the Y-axis, and same thing with 1D. And no, it kind of, my brain went like, whoa, I haven't seen this before.
Yeah, this as a proof of concept, phenomenal. Hope Andrew gets like maybe a publisher on board who can help scale and get the game out there. But the boundary condition from Andrew Groot, and this one was like just on a random side table, and Andrew was just like showing off the game, which was wild. I've got one more. I played Primrows. So speaking of kind of smaller titles, this one is coming from Tertiop Studios, I think how you pronounce that. It is what I appreciate. It is a women-led and LGBTQ plus led studio, and from Wisconsin. And Primrose they described as sort of an unmatched 4 sort of game. So imagine you have a 4x4 grid. And within that 4x4 grid, there's just a bunch of flowers that are on that grid. And your job is to score the most amount of points possible by pruning certain flowers to make sure that you don't get the same flower in a horizontal line, in a vertical line, or in a 2x2 grid within the 4x4 grid. So, if let's say there are 6 different types of flowers, I don't know the exact number, but you prune flowers between, let's call them turns. And so let's say you prune out a bunch of flowers to make sure that you reduce the amount of duplication you have within rows and within 2x2 grids. And then you water your whole grid and new flowers randomly pop up. Oh. And you get, at least in the mode that I played, you get 3 rounds to prune, water to try and maximize your score. And you score by having, like I said, no duplicate flower types in the rows and in those 2x2 grids. The art was very adorable. It seemed like a very cute and cozy kind of video game. They had a very cute mushroom standee in their booth, and I actually spoke to Susan, who was the artist on the game, and I played it on a phone, and it seemed rad. So I'm happy to report that this is a cool game. You can wish this one. It's like a reverse match 3. 100% what it is. If you like a match 3, but you are like, I've played all the match 3s and they're all the same. This is taking that concept and flipping it on its head. Yeah, and I know the team has thought about a bunch of things too, because the flower designs, not only are they all different colors, but they're all different designs too. So there's a post on their Steam page that I saw after the fact that they just put out last week around the accessibility choices that they made here to make sure that this game was playable by the most amount of people possible. It also it's kind of Sudoku. They didn't say, hey, this is Sudoku, but it's basically Sudoku. Yeah, with colors which and is shapes. Wild that they haven't said the word Sudoku in any of their materials, but this is Sudoku. Sometimes some people don't like numbers, and then you say that and they're like, ooh, numbers. Get those numbers away from me. So it is flower Sudoku. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. This one, according to the Apple Store, is expected in April of 2025, but there is no date on Steam. So we'll make sure to link the Steam page for Primrows. You can check that out. But I think those are all the games that we played. I think we have one more we're going to talk about briefly, but let me just go over those again. Actually, why don't you talk about Derelict, and then I'll recap for us. I just wanted to mention Derelict real quick. It is a little project made by a company called No Waves. It is one man making this game in his off time. It was just one of those small convention super indie video game moments of no, he's a lawyer who really likes games, and he was like, you know what, I want to bring more joy to my life, and what can I do in my off time that I like doing? And he likes video games, and he's never made a video game before, and he's just been experimenting with this game and working on it and trying to figure out how to game design, because he's never done it before. And considering all that, I'm like, I'm curious to see where this ends up. I feel like this is over the years going to develop very slowly, but I was kind of impressed with where he's at. And somebody had come by and talked to him and was asking him game developer questions, and he's very sweet, man. He's like, I don't know. And they're like, oh, well, why did you use this engine over this engine? He's like, I don't know. He goes, it was the one that I downloaded that I thought, oh, I kind of understand how this works and I can use this. And he's just experimenting and having fun. And he's has a getting reception from people and working on it. And I'm like, this is heartwarming. To the game. It's Derelict is the name of it? Derelict. 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 It's a little old school, Zelda-like, where you're getting through the world. There are enemies. The combat is very simple. But what got me, I was intrigued, is that I'm like, oh, you're talking to people who are telling you little things about the world. And I found a little altar that clearly if I find some key item, I can return to that altar and put it on there and something will happen. It kind of had that thing of oh, what am I going to find in the next area? Which that's what I want, right? I'm I want to be curious about what's coming next. It is on itch. You can download it. You can download what's there. Like I said, it's a work in progress. It is kind of bare bones, but I don't know. I was this is better than
I think it should be. Like, if I was like, oh, I'm going to download a game engine and try and make a game for the very first time with no background knowledge aside from liking games, I would be nowhere near this, even after I would assume like 3 years. So I'm like, good for you. I'm going to just like keep a little eye on this. I'm curious.
Did they have a Steam page, or was it literally just the itch page?
Just the itch page.
Just the itch page. Okay, we'll make sure to link this one on the itch page, and maybe you can follow them on Twitter. I think it's No Waves Games is the name of the studio.
Correct.
But they had a very low-key little booth, so I'm glad you enjoyed that one. So just to recap, we started with an interview with Jay Kidd from Wraith Games about Collapsus, a cool little match 4 game where you flip the board. And then we ran through games from Midwest Games, Hive Jump 2 Survivor, Dark Sky, Duck Paradox, and Lullaby of Life. And then from there, we talked about Maiden, the Pedestrian, Primrows, the Boundary Condition, and then we just covered Derelict. You can check out all the links to these games in the description, and if any of them sound cool, please minimum give these folks a wish list if they are not out yet. Katie, that's our show for now. I guess shout out to our friends Ace at Green River and Dave Jackson, as well as Dan from The Greatest Story Ever Played, who kind of took us through Columbus. We got to go to a great food hall. You didn't stick around for the last night, but we went to Cobra and had some delicious sort of Asian American / American diner food. It was a great bar that we went to, so shout out to those folks for taking us through. But that's our show. If folks want to find you on the internet, where can they do so?
I am on Twitter still. I am Lesperak, Lesperak. I'm there. I'm still talking about cats and FromSoft and sports.
Great. You know where a better place is compared to Twitter.com? Our Discord server, where it's a lovely place where people talk about games. You can find the link to that at leftbehindgame.club/Discord. But as we mentioned, we are still also posting on Twitter because we do these shows kind of non-regularly. So if you want to find out information about when our Brutal Legend show is coming up, for example, make sure to give us a follow there. You can follow me on the internet at Jacob McCord on everything. I'm actually spending a lot of time on Blue Sky these days. So you can find me, I believe, because it is a federated protocol. So I believe jacob.bsky.app is where you can find me, I think. I don't know how these things work. I'm not a smart person. But yeah, I'm in all the other places too, at Jacob McCord. Friends, that's our show. So thanks for listening. And that, my friends, is lots of games. Not left behind, I hope.
Nice.
Video games are a unique medium.
They can tell stories,
Immerse us in strange, fantastic worlds.
blur the very boundaries of our reality.
But at the end of the day, video games are fun. Whatever fun is to you.
I'm Jeff Moonen,
And I am Matt, a.k.a. Stormageddon.
and on Fun and Games, we talk about the history, trends, and community of video games.
It's a celebration of all the games we play and all the fun we find within them.
And there's so many more games out there, so we hope you'll share in that conversation with us.
Fun and Games podcast with Matt and Jeff. Find us on certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
And happy gaming.